Live here.
Live!
But we don't have to necessarily know what that means.
What's the someday of blank?
I don't
There's
know
a
that we
reason
want
this story happens now.
Ladies and gentlemen, the movie writes itself. Ooh.
I'm still streaming. How do I stop streaming? No!
Getting ready. Hello.
Ready.
Wednesday, January 11th, 2023.
I keep writing 2022 everywhere.
What?
I wonder if I keep writing 2022 just everywhere. I wonder if the amount of checks that get written like the first month or two of the year
I'm
are just
sure
all
they're
wrong.
all dated wrong. Yeah. They're all dated wrong. Absolutely. Totally screwed. Well, welcome to episode 52.
52. If we'd done one a week, we'd have done a year of these now.
Oh, we would have done a year of these.
Yeah.
Now. Man.
Is my screen buzzing? Is my screen doing something weird?
It looks okay to me. It looks okay to me right now.
On my end. But as long as it's not doing that on your end.
It's not, but sometimes things are weird. Like I thought you were muted on my end, and really I just hit the mute button.
That's true. That's true.
So who knows? No, you look totally fine.
Great.
As good as you can look.
I'm as good as I can do, given the circumstances.
Sorry, I have hat head today. Anyway, we're here. Ben and Jake write a movie. I think we're going to open up that outline today. I feel
we're going to do it today. We're going to do it.
I feel really good about that today. But before we actually
second week of the year, we'll actually open up in the middle of the second week of the year. We'll actually open up the outline. We're outlining a movie, but get this, we're not going to actually open up the outline.
Right. But you said it, and I'm going to repeat it again.
Fine.
Normally, an outline for us would take about 2 weeks.
Yeah.
2 weeks and I would say, I'm going to be nice. I'm going to say we get 6 productive hours a day, 5 days a week, 30 hours. It's about 60 hours, right?
We're not there yet. We could easily finish this outline in that time.
We're not there yet, not even by a long shot, because we do our little talks at the beginning.
Speaking of
interviews. Speaking with Transition Man, I have a topic for today. I wrote it into the title. It's actually not even my topic. It's Nick's topic, because I love that Nick wrote all these topics. And actually, for anyone that listens or watches that has any topics that they'd like to talk about, or like us to talk about, I should say, leave them in the comments, because I'll tell you, there's great things that he came up with that I didn't even think about, and it's perfect.
Totally.
One of the things he has here came up literally 2 days ago in our normal writing session conversation, and it has to do with planning for the future. And I'll read what he says here. Planning for the future. How far ahead do you consider your career? Only as far ahead as whatever projects you're juggling currently? Do you have longer term plans of how you'd like your careers to develop? Any consideration of the evolution of the types of stories you're writing / movies you'd want to make? I'd assume there's probably a balance struck. So I guess the question is about striking a balance between thinking toward the longer term future and being fully invested in the projects you're writing, developing currently. I think it's really astute. And I think that it is something that we constantly talk about, all the time.
I mean, literally, as you said just before we got on, yesterday we were having, because we had at the start of last week, we went through the list of our projects that we have in some form of development, in some form of active development, whether it's this is a movie we want to write next, this is
an idea that we're wanting to do, yes, something that's on our priority list.
And we prioritize them.
Yeah.
And we've forgotten one. I came across a book last year that I really liked. I'm getting a weird delay.
You sound great to me. But if you'd like to disconnect and then connect again, I'm going to continue telling the story, and you come back for a second. So basically, what happened was Jake had found this book I think he was out with his kid at one of these cool bookstores in Portland, and it was a really great children's book. And we have a lot of experience adapting books in one way or another, and And he came to me and he was like, oh, this is this really cool story. I haven't seen this story in this way before. Bada, bada, bada. Now, the book isn't like a giant bestseller. It's not something that is being chased by a million people. But it's a really solid story. And so we decided that this was something that we would want to pursue. I just told a little backstory. Jake is back now. For those listening, he is back. Jake White and the Seven Dwarfs. Okay. So basically what I'm saying is that you found this great book. Yep. It had a really good story, unique take on a story that we hadn't seen before. It's not a New York Times bestseller, but it's a good book. Yep. No one's actively chasing it as far as we know. You reached out to the author. He said, I'd absolutely be open to doing something with you guys. And he gave us his representation's contact information.
Yes.
And when that came about, we looked at our slate at that time and said, I think at that time we had at least 2 book adaptations that we were already working on.
Yeah.
Possibly 3. I can't remember. We had a bunch of originals and other things on our plate. One of which, we already have a shopping agreement for a different book series. And so we decided, you know what? We just can't take on another project that is going to require some form of a ticking clock, because when you get a shopping agreement, it means you have to do something with that material within a period of time, or you no longer have access to the material. And you can ask to renew it, and depending on your relationship with the writer and whatnot, I'm sure that there's people who have shopping agreements for years. But generally speaking, you're lucky to get a full year, especially at our level. And so we were like, rather than us trying to get this shopping agreement with all this other stuff on our slate, we're still trying to package the first book series, and then all of a sudden we start that clock ticking. Let's hold off. And so that's an example, I think, of us always thinking about our career. And interestingly, the book came up again yesterday. You had brought it up because we originally had said we were going to address it in the new year. But things didn't happen in the fall the way we thought. A lot of projects got pushed to this year, so we still have a whole bunch of things that are on our slate that we thought would have been off our slate.
That's right. That's right. For better or worse.
Yes, for better or worse. So we decided again, you know what? Let's hold off a little bit, at least until 1 or 2 of the things drop off, so that we have a bit of a flow. I think that there's 2 real big parts of this question. I think part of the question is juggling current projects versus future projects. And I think part of the question is, where do you want to be in your career, and how do you think about that, or do you just focus on where you're at right now? We definitely do both. I think we're always thinking about where we want to go. What would you say about juggling projects, Jake? I'm going to pass the baton.
Yeah. So in terms of juggling projects, it's interesting because for me, the question comes down to a couple of things, one of which is workflow. What does each project need at where it's at that particular time? And how genuinely, how many different things can you do a day? So I think we can probably, again, it depends where different things are at. I think we can probably manage, and we've talked about this briefly in the past, manage about 3 projects well at any one time. If we start to add more, I think
it's stressful.
We start to suffer. So for example, our day today looked like this. We got on first thing in the morning, had a little catch up. Then we did some writing
for project 1.
On project 1.
Then
we had a meeting in the middle of this. We had a meeting on a project that we're producing. And that didn't require creative.
I would almost like compartmentalize those.
Then we got together and we did work on a pitch for the book series that Ben was just talking about.
Project 2.
And this is a pitch. So there's that. Then we're doing this. And this kind of
Project 3
sits in a kind of smaller hole because it's
but it still requires creative energy. I mean, this is an hour. In fact, I gotta be honest, I think this requires more energy than our normal hour.
I think so too. Yeah, see, we're very much engaged in it. But then after this, we're going to go and talk about another. I know I said 4 and it starts to get messy, but again, interestingly, I don't hold this project in my mind much out of this space, but I do on the other projects. I hold them in my mind, even in the background, So anyway, after this,
it's going to start to change. I feel like this project, we've been very religious about saying, okay, this process is only going to happen when we're online. But the interesting thing, and you just bring this up, and so I'm just going to kind of comment on it. When we are working on a script, even if let's say we are juggling 3, and let's say we dedicate 2 hours to one project, that doesn't mean that we're only thinking about that project during those 2 hours. So really, if we're really wanting to be like authentic about our process in this podcast, authentically, like we would never, ever not think about the script that we're working on when we're not together during the day. Work ends at 5 o'clock. We have dinner with our families. I'm sitting on the couch and I go, oh, you know what? This thing's really bugging me. Or I'm in the shower the next morning and go, oh, this is a great idea for a scene. Like
wake up in the middle of the night with a thought.
That is part of the process. So it's interesting that you bring that up because I've had the same experience and maybe
I think it will start to shift when we get into pages.
Well, definitely we'll have to start to shift when we get into pages, but maybe it's also why some of this stuff hasn't been getting resolved as quickly as it should.
Probably.
Maybe some of these issues that we've discovered like over the last 2 weeks or so are things that may have been resolved had we been thinking about them off podcast.
Totally.
So, anyway, that is interesting.
Yeah. So, but when it comes to juggling projects, I mean, and it's precisely why I think we said, hey, we can't quite fit this book in until at least 2 or 3 months away because we just haven't got the creative bandwidth to do it justice. Because you want to do things well. You don't want to half-ass anything.
Yeah.
And we've said that before.
Yes.
We don't want to just phone something in because again, you go, what's short term, what's long?
It gives me anxiety. Like I literally can't do it.
Totally.
Yeah.
This idea that if you are thinking long term, you'll go, I don't want to put a crummy script out into the world.
Right.
I don't want to put a script that people are going to read and go, nah, not really. Because then it becomes
segueing, actually. It's a really good segue into thinking about the future and thinking about, are you just focused on the current script or are you focused on what is ahead? And I think the current script and what is ahead are actually joined at the hip. Like the thing that you're working on now, like you're saying, it's like you don't want to just blow through that and get it done because you're off. Because what do they say? It's you're only as good as your last job, and your last script is always your resume. And so the script that goes out to, no matter what stage you're at in your career, whether it's to agents and managers, whether it's to producers, whether it's to the studio, that's your most recent calling card.
Yeah, for sure.
And so part of the choosing process, even for us, when we decide, well, what is a script we're going to work on, has to do with the future. It has to do with, well, what do we want going out into the world next?
How many times have we said, oh, that's a great movie? That's not a movie we write.
Right.
Because that's not our brand.
Or that would be a really good movie one day.
Yeah, sure.
Right.
Yeah.
Like when we're able to branch out further.
Totally. Well, now is that something that we produce?
Right.
Right. These are all. And
I think that, I'm going to take it all the way back to even before we'd ever sold anything, and the planning for the future, and the question about going, what did we want for our career? And it was interesting, and I may have told this story on the podcast before, so please forgive me. 52 episodes in, I can't fucking remember. But we started writing, you and I, in genre. We've always loved genre. Our mindset was we're going to make our own movie. In that particular moment in our lives, back in our, I guess it was late 20s for me, mid 20s for you, we were going, we're going to write a movie, and we're going to go and we're going to make it, and so like the scripts that we were focusing on were these lower budget genre films that we felt, because even though we knew nothing about this industry, we felt we could somehow find a producer and then actually be involved and sell this movie that's not just a script, but also like us being involved in the movie. And I think what was interesting is that we ended up getting a manager off of one of those scripts. And we started pitching him ideas, and he didn't quite get what we were pitching. And he said to us, and I think it's probably the most beneficial thing he ever said to us, what kind of writers do you want to be 10, 15 years from now? Like, what do you want to be writing? And we said, well, we love, big action, popcorn genre. We want to write Star Wars. We want to write Marvel. And he said, so why are you giving me this? Why aren't you giving me that? Give me a big 4-quadrant tent pole movie if that's the kind of writers you want to be. And I know a lot of writers out there will really disagree with that advice, because the truth is it's much harder to sell that kind of movie.
It is.
But I will say, while it's harder to sell that kind of movie, I'm not sure that it's harder than starting in a genre or a place that you don't really want to be and spending years and years and years and years to try and build out of that place. Because a lot of people we know who do smaller independent movies and they make a living, that's what they do. And to get to the big studio level movies has been a real challenge for them. Not that it's ever impossible.
It's never
small movies. Again, everybody's journey is different.
Everyone's journey.
But I think that in our minds, and we both used to practice Buddhism. Jake still practices Buddhism. We used to chant together as part of our writing sessions, and we used to chant about like wanting to like sell big. I remember like back in the day, like visualizing, I'm going to sell a movie for $1 million. Like that was like always, it was like, that's what I want. And I think that the advice of saying, okay, think about your future and then gear your career towards what that vision is was really good, because we went away and we wrote a giant $100 million 4-quadrant movie, but we did it.
We wrote 3, didn't we? We did one after the other. We wrote 3 spec scripts that were in that space, and the third one sold.
I guess we did write 3, didn't we?
We did.
Forgot it. Yeah. And actually, he did tell us that advice before even the first one, which interestingly is coming back in its own way right now.
It's exactly right. It is, isn't that?
But these movies were big 4-quadrant popcorn, expensive but high concept movies. And because that's what we were putting out into the world, you know what it attracted? Bigger producers.
Absolutely. And the kind of producers who
when you have a script, right? When you have a script that's going to be exactly right, $100 million, you're not going to send it to a low-level producer. The only people that are going to get it are your bigger producers. And so those were the contacts we started making.
We didn't go away and write a $2 million horror movie and then suddenly get approached by a producer saying, hey, I want to do the origin story of Santa Claus. It was we'd already written a.
He read our sample.
He read our song. He read our
Beauty and the Beast sequel.
We wrote a Beauty and the Beast sequel called Beauty and the Beast.
Yes, we did the Cameron with it.
We did the Cameron with it, but when we made the S,
Beauty and the Beasts dollar signs.
But we made both of the S's dollar signs, and
yeah, and it was for whatever reason. It was a very fun script, but Guillermo del Toro literally announced that he was doing Beauty and the Beast, which he never did. Like totally. I think it was like 2 weeks before.
I think it was like 2 weeks before. Yeah. And Disney was grumbling about doing this. Went out, didn't sell, but this producer got that, and because we'd written in that space,
that wasn't the movie that sold. That was just that ended up. Now we had the intention of selling it. We brought it out to the market. We would never, and we've talked about this multiple times. We didn't just write that as a sample.
Right.
Well, it became our sample for the next producer.
Completely.
And the next producer is who we worked on, the great Lawrence Gray, who we worked on Winter's Night with. Yeah. And then that being our big breakthrough, which sold for $1 million. So there's some planning for the future, energy going out there.
Yeah.
That script became our calling card for the next... forever. It's still well, The Princess probably is the script that people know us by most currently. And it was a funny joke because our manager was like, you guys are kind of going backwards in a way. But like in a backwards and yet forwards at the same time. It's like we wrote a smaller movie, but it got made.
Yeah, right.
It's still within the genre that we love. It was still a popcorn action genre movie.
Yeah.
So we stayed within our brand, but interestingly, that's another example of exactly what Nick's question is. When we sat down, we were in a period where we had just finished a couple projects. We didn't know what we were going to write next. I think we were negotiating a possible deal, but we knew it was going to take 3 months because that's how long deals take.
Sure. Yeah.
And we were like, well, what we haven't had a spec go out in a really long time. We were thinking forward. We were going, we can't just sell pitches forever because nobody gets to read those.
Yes. What we wanted wasn't it? We wanted to get read again by the town.
Well, because what happens is you become somewhat siloed into the people that know your work.
Yes.
And that you can't necessarily share your newest work because it's not out there and technically under contract. You can't share it.
You're not really supposed to share scripts that you're working on for another studio.
No.
It's not that you're not supposed to. You're not allowed to.
You're legally in your contract not allowed to.
Yeah.
So now if it goes out into the world like a spec, like Winter's Night did, well, everyone has it.
Yeah,
so we were like, you know what? We've sold a bunch of movies to Sony, which was fantastic. I think at that point we'd sold 4.
Yeah.
But we hadn't sold to any other studios.
Yeah.
We sold a movie to a Chinese studio, and we'd worked in TV at other studios, but we hadn't sold a movie. And so we were like, we need a movie spec to go out to the market for people to read, to remind people about who we are. So we were really thinking strategically. But we also knew we're never going to spend our time writing a sample. We want to do something. So what was the next step in our career? We were like, well, we've been working for, at that point, it was 6+ years professionally.
Yeah.
6.5. We're like, we need to get something made.
Yeah.
Like, if we want to jump to that next stage of being produced screenwriters, we got to get something made. So strategically, we sat down and we went through all of our ideas, which ones could get made. And then I pitched you The Princess specifically as here's a movie that's contained, that still lives within everything that we do, but could get made. And then it did. So I think it's a really astute thing for Nick to ask, and for any screenwriter out there who has ambitions to continue to move forward. You do need to be looking at the next stage. What is the next milestone? What is the next big thing? And how is what you're working on now going to get you there?
Yes.
How is this script going to be the thing that gets me closer to my next goal? What's really interesting, I know we're going over on this conversation, but it's actually
Good topic.
It's a really good topic. So thank you, Nick. What's really interesting about this topic is we reached a point, I want to say it was in August, where the princess was out in the world. We'd had a movie produced. It was made. We had all this other stuff that was like on our slate, various different places. And I think I said to you, I said, I don't know what the next thing is.
Yeah.
I was like, we've, for all this time, since the very first script I ever wrote, I'd always gone, I know what my next hurdle is, or my next benchmark is, or the next, like, I'm writing this script because, not just because I want to sell it, but because I have a vision for where things are going to continue to go in the future.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, what is it?
Yeah.
What is that?
Yeah.
And we talked about it for quite a while. And one of the things that we interestingly talked about was, well, we want to write things that we're more involved in and can
produce. Absolutely.
Luckily, we had a producing credit on The Princess. We were involved in a lot of the early stuff of putting that movie together. We did not get to be as involved as we wanted to be during the studio days of the process. Mm-hmm. And so we were like, maybe the next hurdle for us is to really be more involved in our own projects, to write a movie that we love, that we can actually see to fruition and be involved in casting, be involved in, locations and stuff that we don't, as writers, usually get to be involved in.
Of course.
The producers that do that.
Yeah.
And I'm actually really proud of us because I'm only just thinking of this now. That's exactly what we've been doing since.
What we've been doing. Yeah, it's true.
And granted, the stuff that we are producing on the side of the things that we're writing, that's not quite the same goal. But you know what? It leads to that goal.
It does lead to that goal.
Because that experience of producing those movies only then makes it stronger for us to produce our own.
Completely. Absolutely. And when we say we want to be producers, they can say, well, what have you produced? We can go, this selection of fine motion pictures.
Exactly. And, we have a TV show that we're going to be taking out. We are going to be executive producers on that.
Yeah.
Hopefully when it lands at the place that it's going to land.
Yeah.
And I think every script that we are writing currently, every project, our intention is to be producers on that movie. Now, here's the difference between plans and intention. You can intend for something to happen.
That's what I was going to kind of say something about that earlier. It's great to have forward goal, forward intention, forward momentum towards that, and also be malleable.
Yes.
I think it's important to go. The phrase I like is ready, fire, aim.
Ready, fire, aim.
So you ready yourself, you start taking action towards it. And then if you're not on course, you can kind of go, okay, well, it's actually going to be this, or it's actually going to be that, be malleable to changing course if you need to be.
Interesting phrase, ready, fire, aim. One might think of that saying and go, are you drunk?
Philosopher.
Ready, fire, aim.
Yeah. It's like, get as ready as you can, then take action, and then move things accordingly on the way. Because it won't go exactly the way that you...
Not only will it not go the way that you planned, it will never go the way...
It'll never go the way you planned. I mean, and here's the thing. Like, we've got all these, projects that we are going to work on, that we want to work on. If tomorrow we got a call and said, Lucasfilm wants to meet you about Star Wars...
Right? Yeah. Anyone watching this from Lucasfilm, I mean, we have met with you. You can call us. Pick up, hey, phone.
But that would then go, okay, that plan is changed.
Of course. I mean, look, also, and one of my favorite sayings, I'm going to use my own.
Go on.
One of my favorite sayings is always shoot for the moon, because even if you miss, you'll land somewhere amongst the stars.
That's exactly right. Yeah.
And that truly is how I try and live this career. Don't always succeed, but I want us to always have ambitions that are greater than where we are today, and always be planning and shooting for what those ambitions are. And we will most likely miss at least 90% of the time. But if we're shooting there, we'll hopefully land somewhere in that area.
Yeah.
And yeah, so that's planning for the future. I could talk about this
all day,
literally all day.
Planning for the future. I mean, don't get me started.
There's so many different variations on this topic. I'm going to actually put this comment on screen. So Nick, who we've mentioned multiple times, has said graciously that anyone with questions can post them in the comments of any video. Gosh, Nick. And he'll add them to the list of questions that he's already compiling. So that's awesome.
Thanks, Nick.
You guys now have the opportunity to get your questions on the list. I'm not going to guarantee that we'll answer them, but I will guarantee that we'll read them.
Yeah. We've actually been pretty good about it, though.
We have.
We've had a sensible amount of comments.
Yes.
Yeah, it's never been crazy.
It's been sensible so far. By the way, one more thing before we open this outline, because I'm going to open it no matter whether we work on it or not.
Right.
It's going to be open on the screen.
Totally.
We're at 199 followers as of today.
That's great.
On YouTube, of course.
That's great.
And I said, what was it, like, I don't know, a week ago? I was like, I want to be at 200. And we were hoping to get to it, I think, like at the end of the month.
Yeah.
But
I'm just gonna go ahead and unsubscribe quick.
Oh, you jerk! I love our followers. I love our listeners and our viewers. I think it's great. I love the feedback and the engagement. And honestly, it does keep us coming back every day to work on this script.
Well, so it gets me to put a t-shirt on, but no pants.
All right, let's dive in. It's time. It's time to work. Can everyone tell I've had a lot of coffee?
Open the puppy up. I've only had one cup of coffee today. Honestly, I'm feeling a lack of coffee in my life right now. So
that is not okay. I refuse to have a lack of coffee in my life.
I might have to ask my beautiful assistant to bring me a cup of coffee.
Your beautiful assistant, lovely. I wish I had a beautiful assistant. I have a beautiful person who I am the assistant to.
That's why I just text you saying, "Can you bring me a cup of coffee?"
Oh, you jackass! All right. Okay, so pilot outline. I'm pulling it up right now, and I'm also going to pull up. Unfortunately, I can only share. Oh, you know what? I could have both documents up at the same time, but it might be too small. I'm going to try it.
It might be too small. Well, should we try it? Let's have a little look.
I'll try it because I can have our scratch and our outline up at the same time. Okay. But the issue might be that that the screen that I'm sharing is rather large. And so what I'm working on... you may not be able to actually see it, so we'll see what happens. It's not bad, actually.
Not bad. You can actually do a thing, can't you, in Mac, where if you're on full screen, you can do the thing. They both take up an equal amount of the screen. But
how do I do that?
I can't remember.
I don't know. I've never done that.
If you have a project at full screen and then you go into your view with this is
This is technical stuff. I'm not going to worry about it because really, where are we working? We're working on this.
Yes.
Right here. This is what we're working on. Yeah. And we're going to go all the way back to the beginning, which we love to do. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to save us a new draft. The draft that we're currently working on is 11/29/22. I have to say that we must not have saved it.
Yeah, we must not have saved it because we were.
But because we're going to be making some big changes, one thing that we have discovered, and I think that it's valuable for people, save lots of drafts of things.
Yeah.
One day when you sell that script and
this is
you
very
end up needing to talk about when ideas had come up because of arbitration, you're going to want copies of everything you've ever written about that idea.
Yeah.
Like everything.
And so specifically submitted to places. But yes, it's very important to have good. It's just good housekeeping, isn't it? It's just good housekeeping. On that kind of housekeeping note, yeah, I think it's, how you organize your folders, whatever. Find a way that works for you, but where you can easily find something. And back up your work in a good way. Fade In has a fantastic auto backup feature.
Yeah.
We save hours to cloud drives.
Right.
But you could choose your backup location to be on your computer. Which
I don't want that. People don't need to see my calendar.
See your calendar.
I don't know why my dock isn't moving though. It's annoying. There. Okay. That's better.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay. So let's just go back to the beginning of our story.
So what we have said yesterday,
yes,
is that Sam, his wife,
and
mom,
then above as well.
Yes, it's both.
Yeah.
Although we continued to expand upon it.
Right.
Anyway,
you were reading. I interrupted you.
Yes, that's okay. Sam is a wife, a mom, a working professional. She has a life that people only dream of, including Charlize. But she's miserable, angry, and resentful. She actually does drugs, cheats on her husband, and other bad shit that we can think of later. However, as horrible as she may seem, she loves her kids.
Yeah.
She doesn't believe her life can get better. And over the course of the story, the thing that changes in her is hope. It's not huge, but if she can find a way to believe that she can change, she wins. Charlize has fought for 100 years to find a way to stop being a demon and have a life that Sam has. She's almost there, and then this fucking bitch fucks it up. And that's where the banter and humor comes from.
Cool.
We also talked about, as you were saying, the stuff from the day before.
Yeah. So Charlize, she's not there, which is called Lilith. I can see that in the document behind. Lilith, she's not there yet in her full relationships with humans and mankind, but she's close. She's a loner, but has been slowly integrating into this small town, and her walls have been coming down. We can still see her fear of being found through her locks on the doors and security cameras everywhere around her home. When demons start to turn up in her town after the energy blast, she knows what's happening and won't let it continue. Subtle shift, but gives her more complexity. Sam, we just talked about. Yeah.
Question for you.
Answer for you.
You may or may not have the answer. Do you know the actual story of Lilith? The Lilith of myth?
And the answer is no. There's a cup of coffee.
Oh, look at that. Beautiful assistant. We'd like to see you live on screen. Hello, beautiful friends.
He's bowing in the background.
Oh, very nice. Very nice.
I don't. Let's find out. Should we have a little look?
I think we should find out. And the reason I think we should find out is because actually, if Lilith is a character that we could take from actual public domain,
maybe that helps.
At a whole other level.
Lilith is a female figure in Mesopotamian and Judaic mythology. Yes. Alternatively, the first wife of Adam, and supposedly the primordial she-demon.
Yes.
Lilith is cited as having been banished from the Garden of Eden for not complying with and obeying Adam. She is thought to be mentioned in biblical Hebrew, in the book of Isaiah, and late antiquity, and blah, blah, blah. Lilith appears in incantations and mythic stories in various concepts and localities that give partial descriptions of her. She's mentioned in the Babylonian Talmud, in the book of Adam and Eve as Adam's first wife, blah, blah, blah. Let's have a little look. Lilith continues to serve as source material in today's popular culture, Western culture, occultism, fantasy, and horror. Okay,
so yeah, Babylonian Lilith signifies a spirit or demon. All right, I'm gonna take this and I'm gonna just pitch now that I think Charlize not just should be named Lilith, but I think we run with actually this is Lilith. And I think that based on the new kind of tweaks and things that we're making, I actually think, sorry, I'm like facing the other way. I had to move the camera stuff that way. Anyway, I think that we're making an interesting comment on the first primordial demon who started to develop empathy and wanted to be human. She was kicked out of the Garden of Eden. She never had the opportunity to be human. And you know what's interesting about Lilith is, as if you think about that story, you would almost expect her to be the bad guy, but ours ends up being the good guy.
Totally. Yeah.
So
totally.
If she legit, and this may change the Zod story, but if she is legit like Queen Demon, then like her leaving hell or wherever it is, the biblical place in which demons come from, is a big deal. And would be a huge slap in the face to whether it's Lucifer, the devil, or whatever Babylonian person, place, or thing.
I like it. Let's do it. Why not? Fun.
Let's do it. Let's do it.
It doesn't matter what history is there, because it's like,
oh, it's all myth.
It's all myth.
Yeah. We don't need to stay true to anything. The point is, she is either the first. She's one of the first demons. She's an early demon who was kicked out of being a human and forced to be a demon, has been around for millennia. And decided to escape hell and live on Earth as a human. And so just running with that for a second, I want to talk about what the Antichrist then means to someone like Lilith. And is there something, we talked about like what her personal like thing is.
That's
there's something about this being that is going to take over Sam's body, or this demon that's going to take over Sam's body. Is that where the personal things come from, rather than it being specifically the Antichrist, which has no direct meaning? Is there something within Lilith mythology or with early Babylonian demon mythology or Judeo mythology whereby she knows because she was there? You know,
that's interesting.
I'm just looking here through, like, it might take a little while for us to kind of go through all of this, and I don't want to
totally
all this quiet in our thing. There's different there's a lot of different Mesopotamian mythologies about Lilith. The Epic of Gilgamesh, interesting.
That's right, absolutely. In a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
A really good one I just found called godsanddemons.fandom.com. It's part of the fandom.
Interesting.
Lilith is a feminist symbol today, since she wouldn't submit to Adam and wanted equality. Quite like that. Well,
interestingly, she would be in our movie because while it's nothing to do with Adam, she's not submitting to what was expected of her and wants to be a human, a normal human. So she is actually following that path still to this very day. And I wonder if there's like some sort of what would be the Mesopotamian or Babylonian bringer of doom monster or hell demon or something like that? Can we go for, like, I'm using this as the bad version, it's like bringing the Kraken, you know, like, is there something mythological that we can instill so that it's like, that's what Sam is legit becoming, and that's what we need to stop happening?
Totally. So yeah, it's it's ancient Sumeria.
Right. You just steal. It's Gozer.
That's it. It's Gozer.
It's Gozer from anyone who doesn't know the reference. Ghostbusters.
There are a bunch of Babylonian gods.
Right. So what is the? I wonder if there's a Babylonian Antichrist.
Yeah, totally. Babylonian Antichrist is not the worst thing too.
Let's see. So this is all biblical. I don't want biblical. I want Babylon. Interesting. There's the Tower of Babel.
The Tower of Babel, absolutely right. Yeah, Babel. Yeah.
Interesting. The Tower of Babel. That if we wanted a place that needed to be gone to, maybe that's a place.
That's interesting. Babylon the Great.
Yeah. The Beast. There's a lot of people who call it the Beast. Interesting.
Oh, this is interesting.
Yeah.
Babylon the Great, commonly known as the Whore of Babylon, refers to both a symbolic female figure and place of evil mentioned in the book of Revelation in the Bible.
What is she called?
Babylon the Great.
She's just called Babylon.
Yes, known as the Whore of Babylon. Her full title in Revelation 17 is Mystery, Babylon the Great, the mother of harlots, abominations of the earth.
So it's Lilith and Babylon the Great team up to stop hell from coming to Earth.
I think it's really interesting. Yeah, interesting. Refers to both a symbolic female figure and a place of evil in the book of Revelation. Yes. That's interesting. That is interesting.
Very interesting. That's cool. I dig this because it removes it, and it's something that I've always bumped on, and this. It removes it from the Catholic Constantine lore that is so steeped in these The Exorcist, all of that stuff. We're now going further back. We're going, this is mythology that,
yeah, sure,
but it's not, we're not necessarily saying it's the Antichrist. Although I do think there could be a fun little moment of dialogue where it's like, what are you saying? I'm the Antichrist? And, something like that. But I like that the mythology now that's coming together is ancient in like a pre-Bible way.
Yes,
and
right. Yeah.
There are two really good things about that. One, it hasn't really been tapped that much, which is great.
Yeah, sure.
But two, we can make up whatever we want. Because it doesn't really matter.
Sure.
No one knows it. People have heard of Babylon. Most people have heard the word Babylon, and a lot of people have heard of Lilith. Lilith was a character in Lucifer. They did do the Adam thing. I think I told you that when we chose this name.
Yeah, right, sure.
Totally different kind of a character, and they made her like uber sexy, and she was very sexy in the show.
Sure.
But this is I think
it's very interesting
with this. It's very interesting.
Yeah,
and I like that it creates this really dark history. If, for example, all right, pulling back. What if Lilith and Babylon the Great knew each other back in the day? They were like full-on enemies. Babylon the Great was defeated in some way, and I'll use cast into the Phantom Zone.
Okay. Yeah, keep going.
Lilith ended up going down to hell. They were both punished for whatever it was that they did back in the day.
Yeah.
They hate each other. to no end. Lilith wants to be human. Babylon wants to destroy humankind.
Yeah.
So, as Sam continues to change, she starts to become Babylon. Her personality, her memories, things start to happen to her where it's literally Lilith being confronted from the demons from her past. The inner demons of her past. And that to stop Babylon from coming back is not only professional in the saving of mankind, but is incredibly personal.
Yeah. Cool.
What if Babylon is the reason she ended up a demon in the first place?
Interesting. I think it's really interesting. I like a lot what you're saying.
Like, what if
it makes it really, ultimately it's what we're looking for, isn't it? It's like, what makes this all really personal?
Yeah, right?
This is really something deep from her past. But question.
Yeah, sure.
So and it comes to what we have already, what we're looking at right now.
Oh, I can't do that. That's like weird.
Whoa, I'm being sucked into infinity.
Yeah. Sorry, I just have to like deal with me looking.
It's okay, don't worry, it's all good. Yeah, I'll look over here.
Yes.
What does this have to? Is there any way? I guess my question is there any way to use the concepts that we've already talked about, which were that the demons for the longest time were doing this thing to raise the Antichrist in the form of Babylon the Great? This is what they've been trying to make happen.
Possibly, but I'll counter that question with,
who is your dad?
I don't think we've actually broken that desire to the point of even knowing how that comes. Like, how does that desire line for the demons, how does that affect this plot? Versus,
well, it means that they are. Okay, yeah, a good question. That's a good question.
If the demons know that Babylon is returning and Babylon was once the top dog in Babylonian hell, or something along those lines, then the brazenness of them returning and all of that stuff, we could find a way within the mythology that it will foreshadow the coming, maybe it's a curse that Babylon placed before she was cast out. In the days before, I'm going to return one day and blah. I think what you're asking, though, and I'm going to backtrack on myself here. I think what you're asking is, why Sam, why now? I think that's the note beneath the note, because what we've said is the demons have been trying to raise the Antichrist, and they did this. They've done this thing to create this happening today, and that's why it's happening now.
Correct.
With that being said, with our new version of Sam, why Sam, why now?
It still applies.
Yes, because they didn't. She didn't lose. She's not going to lose her kids and her husband in this terrorist attack. So,
is there, though, for example, if there were a terrorist attack in Portland? Every time I drive over a bridge in Portland now, by the way, I instantly think about, like, is this going to explode underneath me?
No!
Whoa! There's a lot of bridges in Portland. But if there were, like, what's that thing? Like, I think of when I open, oftentimes I will open the news the first thing in the morning while I'm brewing my coffee, 6 a.m., and I will read a headline or something. I go, oh, that's depressing. And I have to kind of pull myself out of it a little bit. Just it's very easy to get sucked into that emotional state if you read something horrible. That's what the media want, Jake. They want to keep you that way. No. But like, that's a genuine thing that I think people experience. If there were something bad that had happened and she had been the Kwisatz Haderach of demonhood, whereby they had been manipulating and she is the ideal candidate for it, and something bad happens in the city in which she lives, and her best friend dies, whatever it is, could that be the thing that activates the thing inside of her, whereby she'll become a receptor to the spirit of Babylon? Maybe.
Yeah, possibly. I mean, we can definitely think about what would be, here's a woman who hates her life, who puts on a show, but genuinely has lost all hope. The only thing that's good in her life is her kids, and she probably doesn't think she's a good mom, and she probably hates herself for not being the mom they deserve. And she does drugs and screws around and parties and is reckless. What would be the thing that tips that person over the edge to the point of becoming, quote, evil? It has to be almost like.
But again, is this one thing to talk about? Is she becoming evil, or is she becoming the vessel of evil?
No, I think in this version, she's definitely the vessel. But what allows her to be susceptible to that? What about this? I mean, because sadly, there are a lot of people in the world who are very angry, unhappy, and go through lots of shit in their lives, and not all of them become the Antichrist, become Babylon.
Yes.
Something about Sam is specific. Something about Sam is the person that they've been waiting for centuries and centuries, and they finally found her and did the thing that makes her become the vessel. She is the anti-one, as we described it.
Yes, sure.
Neo, the negative.
Neo the negative.
The negative Neo. Neo the negative.
Yeah.
I wonder, even as I'm saying that out loud, can that just be it? Can she be Neo the negative? Can they have been looking?
It's interesting. Let's talk about Neo for a second, because in the Matrix, obviously Morpheus has been looking for the one for a long time. And in fact, there's a great line that they filmed that they cut out, which is that there were 7 more before Neo, or a certain amount. And Cypher's like, you're not the first one.
Yeah, totally.
What happened to all those? Yeah, they all died. What do you think happened to them? But where I was going was that the other line in the Matrix is we don't normally bring them out. You're too old. We normally have a time period where, i.e.,
I kind of see where you're going with this.
There was something that hadn't happened yet to align Morpheus with Neo. And what is it? What becomes to the question of what is it now? It comes to the question you were asking earlier. Why now? I understand the why Sam of this.
Why now in the Matrix?
I haven't got the answer to that question. I
never had the answer to the why now of the Terminator. It's really interesting because, hey, screenwriters out there, you will get this question on every single idea you pitch. Why now? And then you go back and you go, well, I mean, some movies have a really strong why now, but then some of my favorite movies don't. They just
I mean, like with the Terminator, we says like, why not last week? Why not 2 years ago? Why not 10 years ago? Why not kill Sarah Connor when she was 9?
Exactly.
All of those things.
Would have made a lot more sense.
Maybe there's an answer to it. It's never explained in the movie.
Well, that's the thing. If there's an answer to it, it's definitely never expressed in the movie. And I mean, you could say the answer to a certain degree, and it wouldn't be why last week, but if Reese didn't go back now and have sex with Sarah Connor as an adult, then John Connor would never be born. Like if you go to the end of the movie and you realize that it is a time loop and that John Connor knows that Reese is his father and just isn't telling Reese, that he has to send him back to a point whereby he would have sex. The problem with that is that the Terminator sent back first.
Insert all the that you can poke in a great movie.
A million things, right? A million things. But in the Matrix, legit, there's no real reason that they come across. I mean, they've been looking. Why today did they find
Neo's been looking for Morpheus for a long time.
I mean, all they do is say the why now of that movie is because they found him.
Because they found him.
The why now of the movie.
Yeah.
Because if we've found him, they can find him too.
Yeah.
And
they should have just reorganized the letters of his name and gone, oh, of course you're the one. Staring me in the face.
You know, I actually never.
Did you know?
You just blew my mind.
Had they just looked him up in the telephone book, like
I
Sarah
feel
Connor.
really dumb right now and very seen by the audience. But I never put that together. And I love the
literally, it's there.
Wow. Well, but
but I hear what you're saying. There is no.
The movie happens now because they find her. And why is she exhibiting all this behavior? Because she's the anti-one.
The stars are aligned, but there has to be a something, isn't there? Anyway, but I actually do like
there.
What?
What is the something? What is the something in the Matrix?
Yeah, there is no something.
We've been looking and we found him.
Yes,
and if in this movie, Zod has been looking and they found her, and somehow that's what needs to trigger the vision for Charlize.
And that's what I'm getting to. What is the thing whereby the first line appears on the tattoo?
Right.
Is it?
They have to trigger the change. There needs to be a trigger.
Triggers the change, and it can't just be based around time, because then then Lilith would know it. Then the bad guys know it. Something happens. And again, let's figure out what that something is tomorrow.
Well, here's what I will say. Number one, we've talked more about inner demons, which I like. Number two, we planned for the future tomorrow, which I like. Number three, we opened the outline. We did not write anything in it, but it opened up. So that's it, guys.
We got 200 subscribers. Nick just pointed out 200 subscribers. Mine says, shout out Nicholas for all the hard work and admin.
All right.
Yes, absolutely. And yes. And Chris M. Ben, just now realizing the Neo One thing is a clip that needs to be added to the opening. Yes, it is.
So true. So true.
Tomorrow we're going to be slightly earlier because I've got things I need to go and figure out. So we're going to be doing 12:30 p.m. PST tomorrow.
Whatever works for you, buddy.
Yeah, I think that's right.
12:30. So join us tomorrow
so
at 12:30 as we continue down this path of Neo, the anti-Neo. All right.
Bye-bye.